We're in Chapter 2, Lesson 1, Decimals and Fractions. Please turn to page 89 in your textbook. Well, we have another guest coming today that's going to go over the real world link. Josh, take it away.
Okay, music. The instruments below show the part of students in the school orchestra that play each type of instrument. Write 20.25 in word form. So that would be 20. Write 0.25 as a fraction, and you would put 25 in here.
Boy, that's awesome. So let's not write them in word forms anymore. Let's just go straight for the fractions.
Okay. Write 0.15 as a fraction, would be 15. 0.31 as a fraction, and 0.29 as a fraction.
So now I have a question for you, Josh. Looking at these, can you simplify any of these?
Yes, you can simplify the first one and the second one, the brass and the percussion.
Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, so why can't you do the strings in the whirlwind? Woodwind.
Because they're prime numbers.
Very good. Awesome. Thank you so much for participating, Josh. All right, turn the page. All right, so before we start this lesson, I want to talk about rational numbers again, just so that we can remember what they are. So everybody write rational numbers over here. Rational numbers. All right, so a rational number has to fit in one of two categories. It either has to repeat, so we know that 2/9 is equal to 0.22 repeat, or it has to terminate. So 1/10 is simply 0.10 or 1/10. It stops after that. I can add a bunch of zeros, but it doesn't change the value. So now looking at this, when we talk about decimals, a lot of you think that a decimal is just numbers less than 1. But let's look at this second statement. This second statement says that decimals like 3.25, 26.82, and 125.54 are also decimals. A decimal is just a number represented in decimal form. So they can be greater than 1. All right, let's look at the examples. The easiest way to write decimals as a fraction is to just speak them. Most of the time we'd say 0.6, but really 0.6 isn't speaking that decimal in decimal form. You have to say it in terms of its place value. So I would say that that is 6/10. So then I have 6/10, which then simplifies because it's divisible by 2 and simplifies to 3/5. The next one I have is 0.45, and again I would say that is 45 hundredths. Misspelling does not count. All right, so then we have 45 over 100, and we know that they're divisible by 5. So 45 divided by 5 is 9, 100 divided by 5 is 20. So that, again, this simplifies to 9/20. The last one is 0.375, which is 375 thousandths with the TH at the end. Love that. Don't you love that? So that's 375 over 1,000. And we know that this is divisible by, let's see, I know it's divisible by 25, but they went even more than that. So I'm going to do it by 25. So I know $3.75, $3 is 12, and 75 is 3, that's 15. and $10 is 40, so that gets me to 15 over 40, so that's an intermediate step. Then I can look at that and I say, okay, so then I can do that by 5 again. So now I divided this by 25, and I divided this by 5, so that makes 3/8. Did they come up with 3/8? Indeed they did, because they divided by 75. 75 is the greatest common factor, but I couldn't think of 75, but I knew I could do it with 25 because I thought of quarters. All right, so get it, gotta go. See you in a little bit. Okay, did you get what I got? I got A is 4/5, B is 7/25, and C is 1/8. For number B, I divided by 4, and number C, I divided by 25, and then again by 5, because that's divisible. I have to look at that for a minute. Is that one right? Hold on, I'm going to pause for a minute, hold on. Alright, so again, I divided by 25, and then I divided by 5, and I got 1/8. Turn the page. Okay, so now we're talking about a number that has a whole component to it. We have the average length of a conch shell is 9.87 inches, and we want to express that as a mixed number. So the first thing that you have to do is pull out the whole component. We know the whole component is 9, and then we have 87 over 100. Now, that's very interesting because the book doesn't match this. Somehow they made a mistake. So, I'm going to leave it at 9 and 87 over 100 because I don't think it's divisible by something that I can use. I know it's not divisible by 3 because 3 doesn't go in 100. 5, it's not divisible. It's not divisible by 7. So I've run out of the first set of numbers, so I know that 87 has to be prime. So in this case, the book example is wrong, so we will leave it at 9 and 87 hundredths. Please get the got it done. Pause the video. Okay, so you start out with 4 and 65 over 100, and we know that 65 and 100 are divisible by 5. So we divide by 5 and we get 4 and 13/20. Remember to put your unit measure, quarts, at the end of your answer. Alright, so writing decimals as fractions is very easy, but now we have to write fractions and mixed numbers as decimals. A little bit harder. So we have the fraction 9/12. Before we ever do anything with a number like this, you should always look to see if you can simplify it first. Because if you can get it, simplify. There we go. If you can simplify it first, then you can get it down to a number that's easily recognizable. In this case, we know it's divisible by 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. Now we have 3/4. If I can get this up to a multiple of 10, tens, hundreds, thousands, then I already have it in its place value form. In this case, 4 times 25, because there's 4 quarters and a dollar, that'll get me there. So we know that that's 75 hundredths. Once you get it up to a place value, then you write it in decimal form, 0.75. All right, the next way to do this is to just treat it as a division problem. All division problems for fractions turn into decimals. I'll repeat that again. All fraction problems by division become a decimal problem. Down denominator, don't go into dead. I don't care that 12 is bigger than 9. 12 has to stay outside. Looking at this number, 9/12, we know the answer has to be less than 1 anyway. So, method 1 is getting it to a multiple of 100. Method 2 is division. Get it, got it, go. Okay, so E is 0.6, F is 0.56, and G is 0.508. Again, in the first one, I multiplied it by 20, that got me up to 100. The second one, I multiplied it by 4, got it up to 100. And the last one, I multiplied by 4 and got it up to 1,000. Are there any questions? Turn the page. Okay, so now we have this tidbit information. Caterpillar can have as many as 4,000 muscles, where a human has about 600. Write the length of the caterpillar as a decimal. You're like, well, what am I going to do with this 4,000 and this 600? Well, that doesn't have anything to do with the problem. You have to go to the picture. The picture says that the caterpillar is 1 3/8 inch. So we know that the number 1 is the whole component. We write that down. Then we know that 3/8, we need to get that into a multiple of tens. So we know that we can bring it up to 1,000, or we just do simple division. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and divide. So I know that, again, down denominator, don't go into den, so we know 8 stays out, 3 goes in. 8 goes into 30, 3 times, that's a 24, bring down my 6. 8 goes into 60, 7 times, that's 56, bring my 4, bring my 0 down, 8 goes into 45 times, and I'm done. So again, the answer is 1.375. Please do the guided practice. Again, no calculators from this chapter on. We don't get calculators because the whole point is that you can actually do this by computing math. Get them done and come back and check your answers. Pause the video. Alright, so check your answers. The first 3 problems, we need to write the decimals as fractions. And it was easy in each of these cases to write them as their place value and then to simplify them. So you should have gotten the same answers I did. Again, remember on problem 3, you have a whole component, you pull that out first, and then you should know that 75 cents is 3/4. The next ones, you have a choice of either dividing or simplifying them and then getting them to 100, which is what I went with because I think it's easier. So number 4, I divided by 3 and got 9/25, and then I multiplied by 4 and got 36 over 100, which is 36 hundredths. 7 over 2 is 3.5. 3 1/5, I pulled the 3 out, and then I knew 1/5 could be written as 2/10, so that's 3.2. And the last ones were pretty easy. Number 7, 0.75 is 3/4, and 4/5, I get it up at 8/10, so that's 0.8. And then the last thing is just to know that to go from fractions to decimals, decimals to fractions, it's just about division. Thanks, see you in class.